It's me, Pan42 Tarot, but you can call me Pan. This week, I am welcoming you to another episode of Knowledge and Nonsense with Pan. So, if you're watching this as it comes out, I'm sorry. I've been missing in action for 3 weeks. I was working on cosplay for this amazing convention that I went to called PAX Unplugged, which is where all these games come from. And it was amazing, and I had a great time, and there are amazing creators that I met and got to play their games and got to see their art and all kinds of stuff. So it was incredible. Everybody who's a nerd who loves gaming should go. So yeah, so these are all the games I got. I just thought I'd show them off a little bit because they're awesome, and I had a great time playing all of them. But today's Knowledge and Nonsense has to do with this brand new deck that I got from PAX Unplugged. It is called the Eldritch Overload deck. It is freaking beautiful. I have not shuffled it at all yet. So when this video comes out, it is almost Christmas time, and Christmas time is a time when a lot of us who are into tarot tend to get new tarot decks as gifts from people. So today I am going to show you how to interview your new deck. I have not interviewed this deck at all yet, so you and I are going to find out together what kind of deck this is, which is exciting. I'm really excited to do this. So, why do we interview decks? It's a practice that a lot of readers do, or normal people, to just kind of understand the energy that the tarot deck is bringing into a reading. Because tarot decks are created by artists, right? And they draw each individual piece of art on every card. And they also sometimes write you a little book that has their meanings of the cards in them. So every deck has its own flavor and personality, and artists pour their soul into their art. So you'll see when you interview a deck that often the art of a deck corresponds with their personality, because so much of the artist was poured into the work. But that's not always true. It also has to do with this deck's relationship to you and all kinds of stuff. So we interview decks to understand what the deck is bringing to the table and how it would like to work with us personally. So let's get into it, shall we? A lot of people I know interview their deck when they first get it. Sometimes you can re-interview a deck if you feel that you've put a lot of your own energy into it and it's starting to speak to you differently. Like if you feel a shift in the energy of the cards, maybe it's time to re-interview it and kind of see how it has grown and changed as it's been working with you, which is a really fun thing. So yeah, I haven't shuffled this deck at all. So this deck is actually still in order. It's got, these are the major arcanas up front. Here. These are the major arcanas up front, and then we have all of the 4 suits after that. So we are going to give it a ridiculous shuffle, and I am going to keep shuffling as I speak to you guys about the deck interview. So when you're shuffling a deck for the first time, like if you have a normal shuffling procedure, like I normally shuffle 3 times this way, and then I normally shuffle 3 times where you like hold the cards and do this thing. But you'll probably have to shuffle a whole lot more than you normally would because they're probably in order. And to get them out of order, you really gotta shuffle it up. So the spread that I use to interview my tarot decks I actually got from this journal, which is the Modern Witch Tarot Journal. And I incidentally keep all of my deck interviews in this journal so that I can reference these when I am looking at my cards to find the right deck to bring to a reading. I do this for all of my readings because we cover such different topics. So I like to bring the deck to the reading that has the best connection with the subject matter. I have a couple of silly decks that really don't want to answer deep questions. And so those I don't bring to the therapy readings, for instance. Or I have some decks that are advice givers, and those ones I bring to the ones where we talk about what to do and what the future holds and that kind of stuff. Or how to interact with people or that thing. So having your deck interviews written down if you have multiple decks so that you don't lose track of who's what is super helpful. Or you don't have to. You could like just memorize what each personality of each deck is. Or if you don't have a journal, one thing that one of my friends does is he writes them down on a piece of paper and then keeps that piece of paper with the deck so that when he opens the box, he is reminded of what the deck has previously said to him. So those are a bunch of different ways you can record your deck interview. So the interview that I'm doing today has 6 questions for the deck. We have how the deck sees me. This is a card that talks about how the deck like first impressions the deck has of you from just the shuffle energy that you put into it this first interview. It's just giving you their first impression of you. And then how I see the deck. This is how the deck thinks that you're going to be able to use them and see them as you continue to work together. Then we have best work. What is the deck's best work? Like when is it used best? This is like maybe atmosphere, or I had one deck that told me it does not work good with other people. There's the best work card really is up to interpretation about whether it's talking about what it wants to do or whether it's talking about what environment it works best in. And then we have what are your deck's strengths? And this talks specifically about what subject matter they really want to delve into, where they're strongest in their abilities. Decks do have abilities, whether it's to see the future or whether it's to delve deep into the subconscious, or if they're an inner child deck or that kind of stuff. And then 5 is weaknesses, because our decks can't do everything. They are only cards after all. So card number 5 is about what part of the tarot or spirituality or whatever is their weak spot. Where are they not strong? And then card number 6, which is the last one, is how is your deck unique? And this is where the deck gets to really let loose about what its personality is and what they love about themselves, what they were created for, how they see themselves. So there are lots of different deck interview spreads out there, so you can find them all over on Pinterest and Instagram and all kinds of stuff. So finding one that works for you is great. This one works very well for me in my decks, so I have used it since I bought this book, which was very close to when I bought my first tarot deck, so it's nearly full now. My kitty cat is sitting on it. Excuse me, Magus. I need that book, thank you. So when I do a deck interview, I write down This book this book asks you to write down who is asking the deck questions, and it's me. Then it asks you where you're asking them the questions. It's on my couch. Then it also asks you what date it is. Today, the day that I am recording this, is 12/9/2023. And then it asks you what deck you are interviewing. And this is my new Eldritch Overlord deck. Hold on, let me figure out how to spell Eldritch. This deck is really cool because not only is it a beautiful, amazing horror / cybernetic / glitter monster thing, but it also, it has a deck, a normal deck book, but it has an accompaniment book. Excuse me. It has an accompaniment book that the company also sells. This is by WeirdWorks. It has an accompaniment book that is like delves really deep into each meaning of the card, but it also talks about how to use the cards in our TTRPGs, tabletop role-playing games. So it's a really cool company. It's a really cool concept. I just bought the tarot, but the book is freaking stunning. One of my friends bought it because he loves his own deck of cards, but he wanted to have the art of this tarot deck and use the information in it to apply to his own tarot deck. So anyway, all that to say, then the next thing my book asks me is the query. Now, we're not really asking a specific question, so I skip that part and I tell it what spread I'm using, which is the deck interview. And I'm gonna write all this stuff down afterwards, but basically then I write down like how the spread looks, and then after I pull the cards, I write down underneath each one what card it was. And then under here in interpretation, I write a big long thing about each card so that I really understand. I will write all this down after we interview the deck because I like to do it by myself in my own silent way. But now that we have shuffled the deck, let's do my normal shuffle routine and ask the deck our interview questions. So let's do it. All right, deck. Tell me all the questions we just talked about. Let me know yourself and how you're gonna work with me and my channel, because ultimately you're gonna be seen on this channel pretty a lot. So let's see what they have to say. Also, a lot of my decks do give me their personal pronouns after an interview or during an interview. So I start by referring to them as they, and then as we pull cards, if a certain energy, like a masculine or a feminine energy comes out, then I refer to them as that pronoun. So here we go. Oh, I'm so excited, you guys. This is like a crazy beautiful deck, and I'm so excited to share it with you guys. It's so sparkly and like 80s colors and oh, so pretty. Anyway, thank you so much, sir. So let's get started, all right? So the first card we have, you guys, this is how the deck sees me. And the card that we got in this spot is, ooh, the Page of Wands. Ooh, this is a really cool Page of Wands, guys. You see how crazy cool this art is? It also has the dice all down the side, and it's got like Japanese characters in the corners that they explain in the book, and like, ugh, it's just all pretty. Okay, so Page of Wands. The Page of Wands is a passionate young soul. Often they are like the childlike energy of the kid who just wants to play games. Like, let's go, let's do stuff. The wands is the doing suit, as I like to call it. And the wands is a passionate suit. So the deck is basically saying, you're a wild child. Hi, hello, wild child. Which is nice. This particular deck, by the way, everybody, is a bit darker despite its like very bright, pretty colors and sparklies. It is a little darker, so I will warn you that we might get a couple cards that have body horror and stuff like that in it. If that upsets you, I'm sorry, maybe skip this part. But yeah, so this gargoyle Page of Wands is giving me really fierce energy, like you are on fire, hands are on fire, you're jumping off a building, like we're going for it. So that's how the deck sees me. Then we have how I will see the deck, and the card we have here is the 10 of Coins. Ooh. So the 10 of Coins is a card about legacy. As you can see here, it's a family sitting around a table discussing something. Oh, sorry, that's my tea going off. So yes, and this is clearly a more affluent family. So it's talking about like generational legacy and leave behind and things like that. So I'm hearing from this deck that this deck is one that I will use frequently, often, one that I will become attached to, one that I will want to pass on and share with others, and one that will really bring comfort and goods to my table, is what I'm hearing from this deck. So a sturdy, steadfast, that's the word, steadfast deck is what this deck is saying. So the next card we have, this is their best work. What is the deck's best work? Oh, and we have the 3 of Swords. Yeah, so this deck works best when we are confronting grief. This deck works best when we're confronting really big, hard things and emotions. It works best in the depths of the darkness, which makes sense. It's a darker deck as far as subject matter is concerned. It's got kind of a post-apocalyptic feel to it. Very cyberpunk-esque. If you're not familiar with cyberpunk, cyberpunk is a universe. It's a RPG game, it's a video game, it's a lot of things. I think Netflix just made a show of it. It's a cybernetic, post-apocalyptic type world. Yeah. So this deck works best with big, hard emotions, big, hard subject matter. It is not afraid of the dark places. It is not afraid of depression. It is not afraid of grief. This deck works best in conflict, in darkness. So this is, I mean, a great deck, because we talk about a lot of hard things a lot of the time when we're talking to our tarot cards. So having a deck that can interact with those hard things is vital, honestly. So, and also, if you do this deck interview with even the same deck that I have, your interview is going to be different, right? Because you're going to be bringing your own energy to this deck and not mine, obviously. So your deck is going to react with you differently. And if you did have the same deck and had the exact same pull as me, that also makes sense, because the tarot deck is like, hi, this is my energy and that's it. Like, so it's the deck interview is not only an interview of this deck, but it's an interview of how you are working with this deck, how this deck wants to interact with you. So it's a two-sided interview. So don't be surprised if you had the same deck and got a different reading. That's how your deck wants to work with you. So anyway, moving on to strengths. What is this deck's strengths? And the card that he pulled is the Magician. Ooh. This is a really cool Magician. I love how body positive this deck is. There are people with amputees and cybernetic limbs and different body shapes and aliens, and just like every kind of representation you could hope for is in this deck, which is super, super cool. So it's strengths, and it pulled the Magician card. It's saying that it is a transformer. It is a manifester. It is strong at taking these dark places and turning your vision around and pointing out the good in the bad and really bringing forth new enlightenment into a space. This deck is strong at creating new out of darkness, which means they're a great deck for transitioning, even like moving or new jobs or a new family, or you know, stuff that's really hard for us to deal with sometimes. Moving to a new state of being. This deck would be excellent at that kind of work. Transforming ourselves even, or our mentality, or our physical, or whatever we're trying to transform, this deck is a great ally in that. So he's a manifester, a transformer. I am sorry. So next we have, what is your weakness? And the deck answered, ooh, the Nine of Swords. Come on. Ooh, this card's really shiny and does not want to focus on it. There it goes. The Nine of Swords. So the Nine of Swords is normally talks about mental anguish, mental confusion, anxiety, that kind of thing. This could be interpreted a couple of different ways, because this deck has already talked to us about being good in the dark places. I don't think it's talking about not being able to handle anxiety or anxious thoughts or confusion. I think what it's saying here is that its weakness is dwelling on these things, because its strength is transformation, is manifestation. This is a fixer deck. It does not like to wallow in these places. It likes to pull you up out of these places. So its weakness is that it doesn't stand for this, I guess is what you would say. Like, it's kind of the tough love deck of like, hey, we know you feel this way, but you gotta get stuff done, girl. Like, let's have a panic attack in the bathroom at work, but we gotta go to work. So this deck's weakness is it's not good at wallowing. It's not going to want to dwell in the dark places. It wants to push you up towards the light. So if you want to like feel a little sorry for yourself, this is not the deck to talk to. It's going to give you solutions, not support, if that makes sense. Like, one of the things that I learned from the internet somewhere, I'm sure it was like either Instagram or TikTok or something, was to, when your partner is in crisis, to ask them, do you want comfort or solutions? instead of just launching into whatever you think they need. So this deck is a solutions deck, not a comfort deck. Solutions, not comfort. It is not a coddler, for sure. So the last card we have here in our deck interview is, what makes this deck unique? And they said, oh, look at this beautiful card, the Empress. Woo! She is so pretty. God, all of these decks. This deck is just incredible. I can't wait for you guys to see all of it eventually. But wow, though. So the Empress card talks about self-care, self-love, self-actualization. It talks about love and motherhood and growing the green places of our life. What makes this deck unique is that it is focused on what is best for you, what is best for the self, taking care of the self first. This deck is very good for self-growth, vision, like pulling yourself out of dark places, pushing you towards your path, your personal path, that kind of stuff. But it is not a deck for asking who I should love next. Like, that is not this deck. That is my other deck. That is my sexy deck. This deck is not about others. This deck is not focusing on others. This is focusing on you. So whenever we want to talk to this deck is not, if you ask this deck a question like, why is so-and-so treating me badly? They're going to point you back at yourself and be like, hey, why are you caring so much about what that person thinks? What is the work we need to do on ourselves instead of telling you why that person had a bad day? It's going to be like, hey, you care too much about what that person said? Maybe we need to like do some self-love and self-actualization here. So, what makes this deck unique? It is a grower. This deck is made to help you grow personally. It is your personal gardener. It is not going to go weed out your neighbor's yard. It's gonna weed out your yard. I hope that makes sense. So, such beautiful cards. And we got 2 major arcanas out of 6, which is pretty cool. Often when I'm doing a deck interview, if I get like a majority, like 3 or more of major arcanas in this first shuffle, I normally see that as a sign that this deck is incredibly connected to me. They're a deck that really feels on the same level as me, or in a couple of cases that it is being used by a deity to speak with me specifically. And I've had that happen with 2 of my decks so far. I do have a lot of decks. So anyway, also, just for a heads up, guys, when you go into a deck interview, don't like put any expectations on the interview. Like, if you're looking at a deck and you're like, wow, this deck is really dark, I don't know if we're gonna jive very well. Don't try not to bring that into the interview, because the deck will pick up on that. But also, decks will surprise you. A friend of mine recently received a very dark deck from, it's actually the corrupted deck from Wormwood. And they interviewed it, and they actually said that the interview was like very sweet, and despite the imagery of the cards being incredibly intense, the deck interview was actually very sweet, and it wanted to work with her on a deep level. So yeah, like, don't bring your preconceived notions of a deck into the deck interview, because it'll probably surprise you. Some decks are very much like they know what their artist intended with them, and they reflect back the imagery on their cards like to a T, but others like don't. Others are like, yeah, I know I look like this, but I'm a sweetheart. Or, yeah, I know I look sweet and innocent, but let's cause chaos. So don't have any preconceived notions when you go into an interview. Just let the deck speak for itself. You can always re-interview a deck. You can always, when you do this spread, if you are uncertain of what the deck is trying to say, like often with best work, I sometimes have a hard time figuring out what the deck is trying to say. So I'll pull another card. So if you ever need clarification on any of the cards, you can pull another card. You can have a conversation with the deck. You can look at bottom energy of the deck, see if that like gives you some clarity. Yeah, this is the first time you're really like speaking to your deck specifically. So do whatever feels right for you and your specific deck that you're talking to. Okay. And honestly, this is like a really great way for you to like see and begin to understand the imagery of your deck. But it's also not a necessary practice. It's a great ritual if you want to become closer to them, but it's also not necessary. It's just a thing that people do to get closer to their decks, and if it feels right for you, please do it, because it is a great enriching experience, and it helps your energy mesh with the tarot energy. And if you're somebody who's not spiritual at all, it'll still help you like get to see some imagery and like see how this particular imagery and meaning aligns with what you already know of tarot, right? Because every deck has a different flavor, has different meanings, a little bit depending on their artist and whoever wrote their little book. So it's a good thing to like start the process of understanding what this deck intended to say. So that's all I'm doing for you guys this week. This is Knowledge and Nonsense with Pan. I hope it's helpful as you guys go into the Christmas gift-giving season and you get new decks. You can really connect with them. You can even do this to decks that like you have had for a really long time and you've never interviewed. It can give you some insight into why they talk to you the way they do. So I hope this helps. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. That helps me out so much. Hopefully I'm back for a little bit now, you guys. Sorry for the hiatus, but it was super fun and worth it, and I needed the break. So I am back, hopefully fully recharged. Let's do it. So I will see you all next week with an actual reading. This was Pan. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I will see you next week. Bye. Oh, this was Pan.